Process.
It's a process, intense, you know, in that there's a lot of preparation. And again, I want to say that part of the preparation is that I spend some time with them. I need to know that soul. So in other words, if somebody walked into my office and even announced, somebody who's watching the show say, you know what, I saw that show and I know I need a soul retrieval, I would still take the time to know that soul. Why? Because I need that soul to trust me in order for us to go through a soul retrieval. Why? Because part of a soul retrieval is for me to put them in a state of regression. You know, to some, it may be known as a form of hypnosis or trance, you know. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and part of shamanism is just that, you know. So I speak to them and I start to relax their bodies and their conscious mind. So again, you see why it's important that we have a relationship. Someone who walks in and doesn't trust me,
Oh, they have to trust you, of course.
or who I don't know, is not a candidate, because we need to be partners.
Right, right.
You know, I need them to know that I'm gonna be with them, and that they're gonna be safe. And they need to know that I'm gonna lead them to a safe place. You know?
Right, of course.
So, but the process itself is, you know, I usually allot about 3 hours, and that's what I meant by intense. You know, we spend a lot of time together. And during these 3 hours, you know, I start to prepare them, you know, in a very subtle way to get into an alpha state, and then somewhat of what, you know, holistically we could call a hypnotic state, you know, so that their subconscious mind can hear me and take instructions, but their conscious mind and their body is in a completely state of relaxation. Once we reach that point, then I call upon the life force to start opening up fields so that we can become very light out of the body and start looking at the complete matrix of this soul.
Does this person actually have a out-of-body experience?
Yes, they do. You know,
Really?
well, and I want to say, if it calls for that, again, there are souls who have suffered soul fragmentations in this lifetime, or there's souls that have suffered soul fragmentations in past lives. And if that's the case, then we have to travel to that time span energetically. You know, I could never say the word, and you know, after all these years of doing this wonderful work, I'm going to try to say Ascodic files.
Akashic.
Akashic. That's part of my term. I can't say words.
In other words, they have
that's
to,
available
they have to
to
go.
us.
Yes, I know.
Well, I want to say that if we're doing a past life that's not this current life, then
you have to go to the Akashic files.
Which is why, again, you know, the relationship that I have to have with this individual, the trust factor, is vital. Because, and by the way, you know, not that, but that's how we were going, you know, tapping into those files. Why? Because if it occurred in a past life, we need to go to that energetic matrix field in order to retrieve.
And find out, too,
you know,
what happened.
the fragmentations. Yes. And again, you know, so many people are concerned, like, oh my God, do I really want to go there? You know, like, and they realize that, you know, that it could bring a lot of fear, you know, for someone who's listening, or, you know, because I don't want to experience this again. And what I tell them is, we don't have to. We don't have to.
You're more like a spectator the second time around.
And this is why a shaman is a pivotal part of this, because the shaman works with the, you know, they call it underground, but it's not. It's, you know, part of the underworld is really part of these lost fragmented souls. You know, pieces. And the shaman's job is to go and retrieve it, you know. That's what a shaman does, among many other beautiful things, you know, healings and cleansing and purification. But, so it's not that they have to relive the experience.
Right.
You know, but what they have to do is be willing to allow the shaman to walk the path of that matrix, of that memory, and to go there with them. And, you know, they need a shaman cannot do that without your willingness.
Oh, sure.
You see? So
oh, yeah.
this
Just
is
like
why
somebody can't put a hex on you unless you allow them.
Yes.
I mean, they can't put any kind of a bad energy on you unless you allow it to come in.
Yes.
Right.
And
so
again,
all right, so then you come to the conclusion that somebody needs a soul retrieval, and you take this person, if they need to the Akashic records and into a past life where they may have had this traumatic experience, and that causes them to be one of these 14 things or more.
Or more, right. I would say that these 14 pretty much covers, but I mean, you know, we leave always the door open. But yes, and so you know what? So now we go through the process. If the soul is willing at that place, you know, to be retrieved. And by the way, the soul aspect that's sitting over there somewhere is always waiting to be retrieved, you see?
Really?
Yeah, because
it wants to be retrieved.
It wants to be retrieved. You know, it was the experience that traumatized, you know, the fragment of the soul to just kind of like, you know, shatter, if you may. A good word to explain fragmentation is like when something shatters.
Yeah, it goes all over the place.
But this experience wasn't meant for a soul to be, you know, it's not like, you know, well, we're doomed, you know what? You suffered a fragmentation, so I guess, you know.
Too bad.
Right. You know, and this is why shamanism work is so important. You know,
yeah, I can imagine.
It fits into this, you know, into this experience because the alternative is to label these people the unlimited amount of labels that we put: psychotic, addict, you know, psychosis, you know, bipolar, ADD, ODD, PPP, DDD, you know, just keep making them up, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Or to recognize that there is a spiritual element to us, and that it is everything spiritual, and that you know, these experiences do happen when a soul can have a soul fragmentation, you know?
I see.
And that there is a solution, there is, you know, there is help. And by the way, I want to say, you know, that the great part about it is that I have actually witnessed, and I'm sure many shamans have as well, the recovery.
Can you give us some examples?
I can. Well, I gave you one actually with
the lady
I started to give you with this woman.
Took out her hair.
We worked, you know, for you know, for a period of time, and actually with her.
She eventually stopped pulling her hair?
Yes, she did, and
really?
you know what? It was a beautiful thing because she was a tortured soul. You know, not only did she pull her hair, but remember that she didn't feel perfect. So this encompassed to many areas of her life where she wouldn't allow herself to have relationships. You know, she would hide, like shun away from people, like she wouldn't look at people face to face.
Wouldn't look them in the
eye.
eye.
Yeah. It took me a little bit of time with her to convince her, you know, or invite her, because I don't want to convince anybody, to have a soul retrieval. And, you know, and again, that comfortability is important.
Yeah, sure.
You know, but anyway, you know, she finally felt comfortable enough with me and said, you know, like, I just don't want to live like, she didn't want to live, period.
I guess a lot of these people feel that way when they're really tortured with whatever it is.
My God, and that's it. And, you know, again, you know, so we really need to, if you know someone or who's acutely extremely you know,
one of these things,
instead of you know, saying like what a loser, or you know how weak you are, you know, you may want to consider that these individuals can't help themselves,
have a deep-seated problem,
you know.
yeah.
And if you realize that nothing's helped, you know, that medication hasn't helped, that psychiatry work hasn't helped, you know, then you know this may be an alternative for them.
Well, tell us any other examples that you have of people who were one of these things or more, and now they're not.
I have many. You know, I'm trying to think of like ones that, you know, really, actually, you know what, I am very close to someone who I did a soul retrieval for, who was a shaman himself.
Really?
And
did he come to the conclusion that he needed a soul retrieval?
Well, he was open to it after, again, working with me for some time. His problem was focus problems. You know, he just couldn't focus. And sort of like running around a little bit like the busy bee as well. And after doing emotional work and cleansing work, and you know what, I had the realization that he needed, you know, he needed a soul retrieval. Actually, this was a little different. This was somebody, like I said, who's very close to me. And what I realized was that I was part of that lifetime with him.
Oh, you're kidding?
No.
And that came out in what, some kind of a past life regression of some sort?
I just had the realization because part of my job in this lifetime was to help him.
Really?
You know,
it's funny
so
how
you
things
get
happen.
It, right? Yeah. And that I was supposed to help him because in that lifetime he saved my life.
Really?
As a shaman, you know.
Okay, now he saved your life, but what was his traumatic experience?
His traumatic experience was that he was a shaman, which is, you know, the word shaman and, you know, say in Peru where shamanism is really embraced and practiced, in Costa Rica, Colombia, you know, in South America predominantly, is everything to a community. He's the doctor, the counselor, you know, the medicine man, you know, a shaman is everything, you know. Anyway, so he was a shaman, and his village, his community was attacked. It was being attacked.
By whom?
Settlers, you know, or, you know.
A group of people came in and attacked them.
You know, whoever took over the lands, you know. And he was trying to protect his village, and he was on his horse, which is why this horse is on this book. Right. And because I wrote this book for him. And he was riding his horse, and he fell off a cliff.
Wow.
And as he fell off the cliff, he saw that as failure. Ah. You know, because he knew that if he wasn't around for his village, that his village was going to be attacked, you know.
They were going to be wiped
out. As he was falling down that cliff, the regret and the resistance to, oh my God, don't let me die kind of thing, just left fragments of his soul.
In that place.
In that place. You know, could you imagine? This is heavy, you know, like this is...
Right, so then what happened then?
Well, you know, when I realized it, I said, oh my God, we have to go back and try to, you know, retrieve your soul. I have to say that I per se wasn't completely successful because I was very close to this person. As I said, I was part of that lifetime with him. And so I wound up sending him to another shaman to do a soul retrieval because I was almost like too close to the situation.
Sometimes it's like a doctor delivering his own baby or something.
It's almost like a prophet, right, who can't preach in his own land. You
right,
know?
right.
So
okay.
I sent him to another shaman to do a soul retrieval, you know. The great news is that this being has been able to claim his spirituality.
That's good.
You know, you know, and feel whole again, you know, in many ways. Still working on some things, but, you know, completely transformed from that dark, confused state of being this busy bee and this rest, many of these dispositions.
At the same time.
Yeah. And it was, I know that it was the soul retrieval and that soul's willingness. You know, that's important as well. The soul has to be willing, you know what I mean?
Well, very often, though, if they're in one of these states, they don't know enough to be willing.
And that could be, yeah, that's true. I mean, and that's a very true statement, you know. So, and yet we can't, you know, we don't have jurisdiction over any soul. So, you know, if we don't have permission, and by the way, that encompasses to more than a spiritual guru or a shaman, you know, a doctor, anybody. If you don't have somebody's willingness,
oh, sure.
there is no way that, you know, the God force itself can come and say, and if that person's not willing, then it's not going to, you see.
It's not going to happen, sure.
So if someone is not willing, well, what we need to honor is that this is the experience they have to have.
I see.
You know?
Because everything happens for a reason.
Because everything happens in divine order. And everything is pre-agreed before they come here, you know? So if you're going to have a soul retrieval, this is kind of like the dichotomy of this, but if you know, if you're going to have a fragmentation, before you came here, you knew, and this is a perfect experience, what I just described. This beautiful soul and I made an agreement.
Before?
Yeah, because he suffered a fragmentation, and so I came back agreeing to be part of his life to help him. You follow me?
To help him get the fragmentation back.
Right, and so what I'm saying is that if it's not meant for us to be, you know, to be perpetually in this, then somehow, some way, we're going to meet somebody down the road who's going to be able to help us.
Oh yeah, no, I believe that. I believe that when you need something, it comes into your life because it's meant to be, and because in the before time you have made arrangements for that. Yeah.
And you know, that's important to know too, because you know, we know that in this life experience we have the whole gamut of so many situations, you know, manifestations and things, and so what do we say? Of the soul who's incapacitated and despondent. Some say somebody in a coma that we can't reach, that we can't communicate with, that, you know, that no matter what you are, a doctor, shaman, healer, guru, that you can't. What do we say about that? Do we say that somehow life failed?
I don't know. Never thought about it, actually.
Well, God bless. You know, I always teach that there's no right or wrong, you know, and yet I'm going to say, you know, that my truth, God bless, is that that soul chose to have that experience.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You know, and that it was not intended to be altered. You know, that soul's will was to be in that state. And so this is why we should be humbled to just, you know, honor. Not to say that we shouldn't care, you know, again, you know, I'm not saying, well, you know, Lavanya said, so.
And sometimes
you know, but if we've explored every avenue. And we see that no matter what avenue we've explored, we haven't been, you know, no one's been able to help. Then we need to become the observers and really honor the soul and say, well, this must be the experience that this soul came to have. Right.
And sometimes they come out of the coma, and they're a different person even sometimes, I understand.
Absolutely.
So maybe that during that coma, they had a sort of soul retrieval.
Right. Oh, well, I don't know.
You don't think it happens without help?
I'm not ever going to say that, you know, that can't happen, but they had some kind of experience, and what's definitely true is that during their coma state, they were inviting every soul in their lives, the family, the friends, the doctors, everything, to harness and to grow from something. You follow me?
Yeah.
Because this person could be laying there completely despondent, and yet everybody who's interacting with them is gaining something. Do you follow me?
Well, yeah.
So their purpose alone may be just that, to be in that coma state, to see what you're going to be, and what I'm going to be, and what you're going to be, and what, you know.
Well, they say that everybody that you meet you have a message for them, and they have a message for you, whether you realize it or not. Even somebody that you see on the street, and you just, you know, maybe make eye contact and both go in the opposite direction, never see the person again. There has been an exchange of information, just that on a conscious level, you don't always know what it is.
And that's true, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? It's great that we're addressing that, because again, it's about just really inviting people to just honor every experience. And again, I'm not, because it is painful to see a beloved one,
in that
say,
state,
for example,
sure.
in a coma state, or a child, or an adult for that matter, who can't speak, like someone who, I'm going like this because I think everybody's special, but who's retarded, mentally challenged. And the pain that causes families, and say like, oh, why we were punished, why did, God did do this, or if they could just stand back and not feel so punished or, cursed, and to see what is this experience inviting me to be a part of? Mm-hmm. Is it to be a protector for this, to be a protector for this being, to be an advocate?
In other words, what is your role in their life?
Exactly, and how can it be purposeful?
Yeah.
Instead of like, the curse and, the pain of, like being cursed with this experience. That shift alone can take us from, being miserable and unhappy to being purposeful. Right?
Yeah, sure.
So.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. So then when somebody comes to you and you determine that they need a soul retrieval, and you're capable of doing it for them, or you're doing it with them, actually.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you just work on it together. It takes an amount of time, and then...
It can, right.
Have you seen somebody that had like kind of an awakening, and all of a sudden they realized, or all of a sudden it all came together?
Yeah, I have. And I've only had one experience in the many years that I've done soul retrievals, and we should talk about that as well for the few minutes that we have, that I wasn't able to regress her, And what I mean by that is to take it to the past alpha state where, where I can get into that psychic, into the subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. She was willing, and yet for whatever reasons, she wasn't able to surrender, And so we went at it for about an hour, and I realized, because I'll know if someone is not at that place of alpha state, mm-hmm. to take that journey, that higher journey with me. She was still conscious. And so after an hour, I said, you know what, this is not gonna work,
And that's it.
And so, right.
So then this person just continues on with their life the way they were?
Well, we hold the field that at some point, something that happened, right, and that experience may trigger her in the future. To, say, well, maybe now I'm ready.
Oh, I see.
Right?
So it's a matter of readiness.
Right. Well, ready, trust.
Yeah.
Willingness. Mm-hmm. And if not, well, then like I said a few minutes ago, then maybe she was just meant to...
Be that way.
And
so in your estimation, I mean, I know that you can't say for sure, but in your estimation, mm-hmm. a person like that, then, they would finish out this life in the same condition that they've been in, and what would they maybe try to correct it in another life or in the future or something?
Well, that's a great question. I would say that, well, that's a great question. If they choose to keep having the experience once they leave this realm, then they can choose to. But remember that when we leave this realm, we go back to the absolute, we can unify with the God force. And so, and there's no obligation, because at that point you have the awareness that you're whole already. So you may choose to have the physical experience again, because it's an experience.
Sure is.
And so it's a soul growth, So the soul may say, wow, you know what, I didn't make it, and you know what, I'm gonna go back and do it again.
And this time I'll...
Because at that place, it knows that it's whole already.
Yeah.
So it may choose to do it again, or it may say, you know what, God force, I got it, I wanna move on to this. If I had to guess, it will do it again only because it wants to have wholeness here as well. you know, and that's what this experience is about having self-realization, coming to wholeness in this lifetime while you're still in the body, you know, because we're already whole when we're out of the body. So.
Oh, absolutely, sure. And when we leave here, we're whole.
Right.
And when a soul that it has to have, that needs a retrieval but didn't get it, leaves the body, are they whole when they get to the other side, and then when they come back, they have the same experience?
Tell me that again, because I didn't get that.
A soul that that doesn't get the retrieval that they need because they resisted or for whatever reason, all right? Then when they leave the body, they leave this earth, are they whole again in their soul? Or
absolutely. Like I said, there is no such thing as unwholeness on a soul level. The only unwholeness is here, and it's an experience, thank God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
well,
it comes
that's what
to
we're here for, an
and
experience,
we go
right?
back to our wholeness no matter what.
Oh, that's good news anyway.
Yeah, it is good news.
And it's a good way to end the show, too, because we're out of time. It was really nice having you. It was very interesting.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to discuss such a vital subject.
Yeah, it is. Let me tell you, it's a very deep subject, and I'm glad that we did it, and thanks a lot for coming.
Oh, thanks so much, Christine. Always a joy to be here, always.
It's always a joy to have you here. I really, really do appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your knowledge, your infinite knowledge that you, every time we talk about a different subject, it's always, you know, very interesting.
God bless. Thank you.
Take care. Good night.